welcome to a special edition of Steelers Today following the annual pre-draft press conference of Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert. Last time, that's all I could think about in there.
Yeah, the final run for Kevin Colbert in this situation has to, at this point, you're right up against it now. I know there's all kinds of excitement about the draft and you're getting ready for all this stuff. But at some point, and Mike Tomlin referenced it, and you're out on the road and you're going through these things. You're like, this is the last time I'm going to, do this with this guy.
Or eat at this restaurant, or eat at that restaurant.
A lot of shared experiences there.
Tomlin's response when he was asked about, what do they do together on the road? His answer was real quick: we eat a lot. He has certain restaurants that he tells them all that they're his favorites.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of them.
And he's got go-to places in every town. But, what they do with those things is they ask the kid, hey, where do you want to go? Because that tells you a little something about, hey, I'll just go to McDonald's. Well, you're not going to take him to McDonald's. But you get the idea. Maybe it's a pizza joint. Maybe it's a rib place or something like that. Because you learn a little bit about the kid. Maybe he goes, well, I want to go to some steakhouse somewhere that's, you figure he's probably never been there before. You learn little things like that, and I know, talking with Tomlin about that, he said he likes to sit back in some of those situations and just let Colbert handle the peppering of the questions.
I thought the dynamic that was described here between the two of them, I don't know that they ever got into this level of detail because they're, like you said, this is it for them. They got into, you mentioned Tomlin's view of what Colbert does, and he asks the more calculated, football-based, like you said, analytical questions as to what it is that you're executing on the field and why, and things.
Or even some of the personal questions, like, hey, you had an incident here as a freshman, and see if the guy, answers the. And Mike said that he'll sit back and see if he'll judge the guy's
read
character,
body language and so forth, and then at the same time, Colbert threw back that Tomlin is invaluable for the way that he can kind of poke and prod you, and he does that, by the way,
everybody,
okay, including the two people you're looking at right now. He will find a way to just kind of, and see what kind of reaction he gets out of you, as if everything is like some kind of big project study, and so as Kevin put it himself, he said, I'll get information from questions that coach asks that I never would have gotten on my own. And it's an interesting dynamic between the two of them. And it's one that I dare say, Dale, has served them very well for a long, long time.
It really has, and I talked to Bill Cowher last week about Kevin. And, he said he's absolutely a Hall of Fame general manager. If you look at what he's done over the course of his career, 3 Super Bowl trips, 2 Super Bowl wins, the number of Hall of Famers that they've drafted, the number of all-pro players that they've drafted, and just the longevity. One losing season.
Yeah, it's
losing season in 22 years.
Any sport, any circumstance, but it applies 10 times over in a salary cap sport where the playing field is level, all except for one thing in football, and that's, you either have that or you don't. Now, if you're waiting for the big, hey, they said who they're going to take, that isn't going to happen.
We actually kind of joked as we were sitting in there before the press conference. There were several of us sitting around a table. I said, we should each go around. The first 10 questions should be, well, what about this player? What about that player? And they would keep saying, well, we're not going to talk about any specific player, and see how long it took them to get around to saying, hey, what are you guys doing here? Come on.
I'll give credit to our own Chris Carter for bringing up Jordan Davis just to see if he'd get some kind of response. He got this 2.5 second answer that told him absolutely nothing, not even that Jordan Davis exists.
That was a rookie mistake, Chris. You're not going to get that kind of answer out of these guys.
This was a setting in which they did, in fairness, say a couple of things. One is that, and I guess this is obvious, but that they paid an inordinate, an unusual amount of attention to the quarterback position, and that Tomlin likened it to the approach that they had at running back in 2021. He said, and when it was obvious to everybody that we needed that, everybody was, they did something different. He said the pool within the pool was what he called it.
Yeah, and to me, though, those two positions are different in this. They had to take a running back last year.
They had no choice.
They didn't have anybody else on the roster.
And a free agent isn't going to help you.
Right. At quarterback, and Kevin Colbert mentioned this, he said, look, if we draft a quarterback, great. If we don't draft one, we're fine. We feel like we're okay there as well because they have Mitch Trubisky there. It's the same thing that they said at the owners' meetings a few weeks ago. Like, the addition of Mitch Trubisky at no draft cost opened the doors for them. Hey, if they draft a quarterback, great. If they don't get one, that's fine. They can certainly work with Trubisky as well, who's, in my eyes, still better as a prospect than any of these quarterbacks in this draft. So it's
really?
Yes.
You feel that way?
Yes.
Okay. That's pretty interesting. That's a strong statement.
People forget.
Potential-wise.
That Mitch Trubisky in 2017 or 2018.
He was a Pro Bowl player who went 11-3 for the Bears that year.
If you throw out his rookie year where he went 4-10 as a starter, he's 25-11 as a starter since then with the Bears. The Bears. He was also drafted ahead of, whether this is right or wrong, but drafted ahead of Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson.
Well, it's not.
He has
right.
that kind of pedigree.
Yeah,
the pedigree is there.
Yeah.
Now, I personally had him ranked behind those two guys, but I could see why he was toolsy enough that I could see why somebody would want to do that. So, I think when you look at the quarterback position, and I thought this was referenced later in the conversation today, what you can't measure about these young guys is what's up here. How are they going to handle the pressure out there?
Yeah, the term that Tomlin referenced, specifically was their willingness to battle. He talked about what kind of traits are you looking for in a quarterback, and he said, well, obviously there's certain qualifications. Yeah. Okay, you got to be able to throw a football X number of yards and so forth. But he said the thing that they value, if you get rid of all of the tangibles, is the intangible of, do you want to go into battle? Do you want to go out there? Do you want to compete?
It's leadership. It's competitiveness. Mm-hmm. It's the ability to handle pressure. And when you talk about the quarterback position in particular, handling the pressure of being the face of the franchise.
You're the guy.
You're the guy.
At
21, 22, 23 years old, you are the face of a franchise. And can you handle being the face of this franchise?
In front of
this is not Detroit.
Dad when it's not yellow.
Yeah, this is not Detroit. To that point, I mean, if you want to look, the Chicago Bears are as storied as a franchise as the Steelers are.
Going way back, but
way back. But that in that town, it's a big a deal to be the quarterback.
It is a big
of the
deal.
Bears as it is to be the quarterback here. There aren't many places that you can say that.
Yeah, and they haven't had one since Jim McMahon, so they're really
being the quarterback in Jacksonville. I mean, you can go around in a little bit of anonymity.
Now, he went in with a different kind of pressure than what he'd face in Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. They traded up to get him.
He went in with the kind of pressure that, look, we've been terrible at this position for 100 years. I shouldn't knock Jim Miller, a former Steeler. Jim Miller had a nice little run there, okay? But for the most part, we're still going back to Jim McMahon, all right? And he goes in there as great, he's going to fix everything.
They traded up to get him.
Yeah. It was not seen, by the way, when we talk about him being taken where he was and them trading up, this was not seen as some outrageous reach. We have to remember that at the time. This wasn't like, other moves that we've seen where somebody leaps up into the first round and you go, what?
No, not at all.
Brandon Weeden.
Yeah, you could go down through a list of mistakes the Browns have made at quarterback over the years. But so if they get that guy in this draft, great. If they don't get that guy in this draft, great. You're gonna live with Trubisky. The thing is that you have to look at and weigh if you're the Steelers this year. Trubisky is going to need to take 70% of your snaps in training camp.
Oh yeah, we'll know.
You got to get him ready to be the starter.
Yeah, we'll know.
You've got to get him ready to be the starter, and that's not going to leave a lot of snaps for a rookie quarterback. Whoever they draft this year, if they draft a quarterback in the first round, and they will draft one at some point. They've got 2 on the roster. They're going to take 4 to training camp. But the thing that they have to weigh, that guy's not going to be getting ready to play this year. It's going to be for next year.
Well,
at best, because you got to get Trubisky ready to play.
Yeah,
this year.
they're going to have to show a lot of different cards earlier. I asked Mike Tomlin about the center position. He's got 4 different guys that can play the position, and
they've got that covered.
He just said we're going to let that play out. They haven't anointed anyone. But again, when we go to training camp, we're going to see who's doing. Yeah, we're like probably on day 1, we're going to see who's lining up first team and whatever else. Dale, they've waited this long. Who are they picking?
Look, if Malik Willis is there, they're taking Malik Willis. If Kenny Pickett is there, there's only a couple guys that I think that they would take over Kenny Pickett.
At other positions.
Okay. I think it would be a conversation with some of these guys. But obviously, if a guy like Jordan Davis is there, or if a guy like
I'd take Jordan Davis.
He's going to play 25-30% of snaps.
I know your position on this, but we don't agree. I think he's
saying.
got the athleticism to be able to mold himself into something a little more.
Maybe.
Kind of the way Javon Hargrave did.
It's going to be a projection, though, much like it is with Malik Willis.
It's a projection, but a lot of their defensive line guys over the years have been projections.
I get it completely.
Yeah. He can do things that other people can't.
Guys like Trevor Penning, guys like Daxton Hill. Do you take a guy like that over the quarterback? That's going to be the question. And as they said, as I've laid out a couple of times now on the site, they'll have their list of 20 guys, and they'll pick right off of that list. And if there's 5 of them available when they're picking at 20, they may either say, well, this guy's number 11 on our list, we're taking the pick. Or if there's 5 of them and it's 15 through 20 or 16 through 20, maybe they trade back a few spots. We'll see.
A few days away now. Just a few days away.
Finally.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.